Here we have a worksheet showing some recent US Census data. This is quite a complex worksheet. It shows details of population changes for the last 50 years. If we scroll down to see details for one of the states that lies towards the bottom of the data list, you'll see that we lose the headings as we do so we can't see exactly what it is that we're seeing in the table. Worse still, if I scroll across to see some of the information in the columns to the right, the state names disappear, so it's hard for me to see exactly what the data that I'm looking at right now actually relates to. I'm going to press Control and then Home because that will take me back to cell A1 of the worksheet. And let's look at how we could make this data more easily accessible. What I want to do is to fix the column headings and these row headings so that they stay in place even if I move elsewhere in the worksheet. To do this, I'm going to click in the first piece of data for Alabama. What I want is for all the data above this cell to stay in place and all the data to its immediate left to stay in place, and I don't want any of this to move. Once I've positioned my cell pointer on this cell, I'm going to click the View tab on the ribbon and choose Freeze Panes, Freeze Panes. And you can see a set of fine grey lines appears. Let's now look and see what happens when I scroll to the right. The state names are still visible even if I move well away to the right. Some of the columns to the right of the state names have disappeared because there's no room to see them, but I can clearly see which state's data I'm looking at. And if I move down the worksheet, the headings stay in place, even though some of these rows disappear because there's not the room to see those rows clearly. But the data's all still there, it's just that it needs to be unhidden by moving up to view it. When you're working with a large worksheet like this, it may be an idea just to set freeze panes on and then save your worksheet. That way they'll always be enabled, and so the headings will always be able to be seen. Provided you save your worksheet after you've frozen the panes, they're going to be still in place when you open the workbook again. However, if you do need to undo freeze panes at any stage, you can do so simply by clicking the View tab on the ribbon and click Freeze Panes, Unfreeze Panes. Now there are two other options here, Freeze Top Row and Freeze First Column. These might look from time to time like they would be an option you would want to use, but there are some warnings for working with them. Freeze Top Row, for example, will only freeze one row, so it will only freeze row 1. If your headings aren't in row 1, then you can't use that. If you select Freeze First Column, then only column A is going to be frozen. But also, if you had Freeze Top Row enabled, Freezing First Column would disable this because these two options are mutually exclusive. You can have one of them turned on, but not both. For that reason, you'll probably find that Freeze Panes is typically the option that you want to use. When you're using it, first make sure to click in the cell where you want the freezing to take place. Everything above and to the left of that cell will be frozen, and then click Freeze Pane, Freeze Panes.